corrections or additions?
Mr. Chairman, I would approve the minutes as recorded.
Moved by Pat to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Corey. And any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried without dissent. On our regular agenda for the 9th of October, consider a request to reduce the front yard tree requirement of 3 trees to 1. The site is located at 361 18th Avenue West. And Elaine and Clifford, are you prepared to come up to the state your name for the record and tell us exactly what you're thinking?
Good morning. We're Clifford and Elaine Mayer, and we live at 361 18th Avenue West, Lot 7, Block 24, State Subdivision. We've never attended any type of meeting here before, so as new residents to Dickinson, this is totally new to us. We're here regarding a letter that we received from the City of Dickinson dated August 17th of this year. I'm here requesting a appeal variance to the number of trees that are required in our front yard landscape, and also obtain a final certificate of occupancy. This final certificate of occupancy, I had never even heard of this before until I received this letter. So I had to do a little bit of homework with that. I also visited with a couple of neighbors visited with me on it, and I also spoke to my builder too. And so needless to say, I had to get a little bit of information on that. Anyway, just to give a brief background, since we are new to the City of Dickinson, we moved from our dairy farm south of Gladstone to our new home on December 15th of 15. And then on February 16 of 16, I contacted the office, the Community Development Service Department here, and questioned if there were any landscape requirements. I spoke to a Brandy and a Jim Thorpe, and I was told there was some tree requirements, stating number of trees, size of trees, etc., and that the number of trees planted in the backyard would also count toward the number of trees required in the front yard. Anyway, that's the way I understood it. And so as spring approached in 16, we made arrangements to have the yard landscaped. As I said, this was a brand new home, brand new lot. On our property, on the south side of the property, there's an easement because there's 5 electrical boxes in the backyard. So we did not want to plant any trees or block that access at all. On the west side of our lot, as I said, there's where all the electrical boxes are, and our lot is 105 by 120 feet deep. On the north side of our lot, there is a huge cottonwood tree. It's not on our property, but it's right on the border, but it's huge, and it canopies over totally on the north side of our yard. And then, of course, we have the front, which is facing east. We didn't want to block the view out our front window. Wanted to look at the street, wanted to look at the world outside our home. And so we decided to offset by putting 1 tree in front. And the remaining trees were put in the back. So on May 10th and 13th, Razor Edge put in all the sprinklers, the sod, the rock. As the occupancy certificate stated, it stated that we didn't have our grass and trees in. Well, they are all in, and they were planted, like I said, in May. And then in June, toward the end of June, June 28th, Taylor Nursery came in and planted 10 trees in our backyard and some plants and 1 tree in the front yard, varying back to the amount that they told. The way I understood it, the number of trees in the backyard also counted toward the requirement front. I have enclosed in my application variance 4 different pictures there showing the front yard, the electrical boxes, the backyard, and then the big cottonwood that canopies over in our area. And, you know, and after I read this letter, you know, and we go walking every morning, so we walk past a lot of yards. There's yards in the area that only have 1 tree. I don't know what their situation is, but I went about, after I had inquired here, and did what I thought I understood as being correct. I mean, at this time, if we are required to put in more trees, we feel it would really be a hindrance and a hardship to us, because where do you put them? Because we took all these easement electrical boxes, big cottonwood into adjustment, and we thought we were doing the right thing. And ultimately, we would also like to have a permanent certificate of occupancy issued to us. And so that's all I have to say, I guess. So is there any questions on me from anyone?
Okay, guy. Any questions for Elaine or Clifford? You have your underground sprinkler system in place, and it would be a kind of a big hindrance to plant a little tree here or there.
If we would plant to the north, that big cottonwood tree would be there. The roots are all over.
They're established, yeah.
That's where we would plant if we would have to plant, but we would have to cut roots and might not go over so good.
Yeah, everything is in place. I don't know if any of you physically driven by the property at all.
We have.
Okay. And we feel it would be it would be a hardship on our part, but that's, like I said, we did what I understood. Now, I don't have it in writing. I was told what I was told, and maybe I misunderstood it. I don't know, but
Okay.
so.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Anyone here to speak for or against this variance?
Leonard, what's your thoughts?
Well, looking at the code and looking at this property, in the last couple of years, we've been playing catch-up as far as sending these notices out for temporary certificate of occupancies. Part of it is, well, the only way you can get a temporary is if the tree or trees aren't in, okay? You do have to have your lawn established or at least seeded for to acquire the temporary. This particular property has 105 feet of frontage. By using the formula in place in our code, you end up with about a 3.15 tree requirement. So there are 3 trees required. I do agree their yard does look nice. However, the requirement is 3, and with sending out the letter and in anticipation of adjusting our code in the future, we sent stating that they should put another tree. I think the city is already working with property owners who have had this, and in the last 2 years, we sent out 160 of these letters. Today, we actually have the first 2 that did not want to plant trees. So as far as, I believe there was a miscommunication between the city and the property owner, but with miscommunication, we're here to try and clarify that today. The city does support that we could do 2 trees because the formula is in the future. That's what we're actually going to be working towards. So that would be my recommendation, and that of the city of Dickinson, that there be 2 trees in the front yard. The formula states it's frontage times the landscape depth, which in R1 district is 15 feet. And you divide that by 500. That gives you the tree requirement. And what we're working on with planning and zoning is to essentially replace that formula with a new policy. And the new policy, even with the new policy, 2 trees still would be required. I did get an email from Planning Director Hadley this morning, and he said he did look in the neighborhood, and he thought that the 2 trees would follow suit with what the neighboring property.
Everybody else has.
Yes.
Any other comments? Question?
I just want to add that I think it looks absolutely beautiful the way it is, I drove around extensively yesterday afternoon looking at different yards, and there are absolutely a lot of yards that are like this with the trees in place, and I don't know that another 2 or 3 trees in there would actually destroy the landscaping more than they would do it good. And I think I'm in agreement with you, Leonard, in the city that needs to be changed. If you drive through these neighborhoods, most of these people have spent a lot of money on them and have done a landscaping job through a landscaping company. So, you know, the dollars spent are put in the right place, I feel. And I guess I'm just saying I'm in agreement with the city that this needs to be looked at and redone. Our city looks beautiful the way that a lot of these newer homes are put together in landscaping, so.
And
just a
I would
comment.
concur with you, Pat. That's why we actually would go down to 2 requirements. And when we look at trees, there's so many species of trees that are available to our community right now. And to use an example, I just removed 2 trees from my father's yard. And kind of almost the same setup as far as getting a landscaper in, doing the nice kidney-shaped things. I actually got a species of trees, 2 trees in one, and another. He has 3 trees in his front yard, and I believe he has 100 foot of frontage, and it looks really nice. So depending on the species of the trees, not a huge cottonwood or a pine that's going to overtake the property in the future. I mean, there are ornamental trees that will meet the requirement, and once that tree is planted, I mean, we could say it looks great now, in which it does, but one more tree isn't going to hurt that. And that's why, again, the city would recommend that we reduce the 3 down to 2.
I might add to my comments that I think that the developers in those areas need to be made more aware of what's required, and then that could be transferred to the buyer of the property.
And the thing about it is on the building permit, the requirements. When a lot of times when these homes are sold, whether it's intentional or not, that landscape is not done. With argue to say they don't know what the homeowner wants. Things of this nature will require that. We won't even do it temporary unless it's completely finished in the future. And that creates its own issues in itself, because that's actually what we'd strive for, especially in the summer months, that everything be completed prior to the new owner occupying the residence.
Could I speak in support?
Sure. Come on up and give us your name. Are you,
I'm the second one on the list, and I figured I better speak in support because it looks like we're going down the road that regardless of what I have to say, is going to be
It's gonna be
decided.
said
so
already.
I might as well come in support. We're in this together. I'm Joe Ciani. I also have a residence at 2755 Country Oak Drive, in which I received a letter from the city as well that stated I needed another tree, and actually one more tree. I did not know that I did not have a occupancy permit, a permanent one. This is my first brand new home. It wasn't a custom built home by any means, so my permit I had no idea what the building permit stated. I landscaped the front of the house to the best, first of all, I'd ask what the purpose of this code is, because I believe it's to make sure the neighborhoods are aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And I think to make sure that there is some type of, requirement to plant trees to offer shade and whatever else in the summer. I think Leonard would admit that this particular code is somewhat problematic, and the city is working on it, because there has been a lot of complaints. Just because people haven't come in front of the board does not mean that people agree with this code. I think part of the problem is the $100 fee to actually come in front of the board is problematic for some people. The other thing is it's easier for people to just put in a tree, and then after they get their final occupancy permit, what stops them from removing the tree? I realize the city may go by and assure the tree is still planted in a year, but typically someone, if they didn't agree with the ordinance, could actually plant the tree and pull it. I'm not that person. The other issue I have with the ordinance is the 15-foot of landscape area, which they're considering from what I understand in talking to city staff, is the curb side of the sidewalk, the house side of the sidewalk, 15 feet towards your house, which is the only area you're allowed to plant these trees in. Not only that, they include the square footage in their formula is the cement area of your driveway. So I've got a 3-stall driveway. Regardless of that, they're including that as my landscape frontage. So they're using that included in the formula to determine how many trees we have to plant. I have 1 tree planted. I have a lot of landscape. I provided you pictures. I'm sure you've all driven by. And I'm sure you've all driven around city and seen people or residents that are in compliance, but their yards are unkempt. Their lawns are definitely something you wouldn't be proud of. But they do meet the city requirements, as they have it seeded, they have weeds growing, they have 3 trees planted. What did we gain from that, really? I think if the city looked at this ordinance, and they have to take into account the shrubbery and the other landscaped area that was done to the home to make the front facade aesthetically pleasing. I don't have a problem planting another tree. I plan on planting 20-some trees in my backyard, columnars against my fence line to create some privacy and a screen there. But I think the code itself is problematic, and I think if you polled the community, including our commission, they would agree that this is an issue, and you have to use some type of, what looks good, what makes the neighborhood look good, what makes Dickinson look good. I think we both have almost identical front yards, and they both look beautiful. We both take pride in our homes and home ownership and how everything looks, and I think it's time that we make a difference. The city knows there's an issue. They're working on the code. We're requesting a variance. If I'm required to plant a tree, I'll plant a tree, but I too have sprinkler system, established lawn. I hate to even cut into my lawn. I got it exactly where I want it. It's beautiful. I've been told by the city to put it in my boulevard. My boulevards are, first of all, they told me to put it in the boulevard. Boulevard's not, from what I understand, not even part of the front landscape area, because it started from the...
Joe, if you don't mind, I hate to interrupt you on this, but Joe, I like your comments and everything in support of Clifford and Elaine, but let's take yours next here.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, well, there's my letter.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Comment, Leonard?
Yes, and again, to comment on Joe's yard, it does look nice. And we have worked with people in the past as far as where you're allowed to put the trees in. Not sure who Joe talked to as far as exact placement of the trees, but you do have that option. If it's in the boulevard, we did have people removing the trees after they plant them. So in that circumstance, we told them to plant them in the boulevard. You cannot remove a tree in the boulevard because that's city right away. Once the tree's planted there, the city has to authorize that tree's removal. That's where we were going at some point when we were having issues with people removing the trees after they got their certificate of occupancy. Joe mentioned that the driveway width. If you build a house and you have a 5-stall garage, so your driveway is pretty substantial, that's a choice of that builder or that property owner making that width of that driveway. they're eating in that landscape requirement. So we're getting a lot of impervious coverage where we're looking at landscape depth in order to have properties like this that look nice. So to actually remove that from the overall landscape depth, we're gonna have a sea of concrete, which in some areas, if you drive through some of the developments in town, we actually reduce the width of the driveways to coincide with the width of your garage currently. Because in the past, they filled in the whole front yard where you couldn't actually get landscaping in. So the ratio between landscaping and driveway, it was overpowered by the driveway overpowered that landscape requirement.
Any other comments? Haley, do you have anything? Okay. Are you ready for a decision?
I guess I do have one other
One more
note.
question.
One of the things we are looking at as far as the requirement, I did state, Director Hadley had mentioned, that the new requirement be that what we're looking at is a lot width up to 45 feet would require 1 tree. 46 to 75 would be 2 tree requirement. And then we'd work on a formula thereafter. So as I stated earlier, that even using the new formula, if that's actually goes in effect, 2 trees still would be required. And we haven't, I did talk to commissioners also as far as the trees in the backyard as meeting some of the requirement. We're looking at that also. But with that said, those could pose a future problem also, because once those trees mature, to get into that backyard to maintain them or to possibly remove them, and most easements are in the rear yard. So planting of those is going to be crucial. You might end up being 10 feet from your rear yard, which, I mean, we have to use a lot of common sense when we're actually planting those. So if a utility company comes in and they need to get through there, we might have trees in harm's way.
Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve or deny the request?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the variance on this particular case according to the section 39-112.011.
Motion to approve by Pat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Corey. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Pat?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll vote aye. I just think that we should, if it's in the building permit and everything, this should probably, how are we gonna convey that to the new owners like Joe?
That's on the developer and the person pulling the building permit. I mean, this home could have changed hands 3 times. The city doesn't have the staff to follow up with that.
Yeah, I
It's almost
understand.
impossible. And that's why we're going out and sending letters out currently. Right now, in order for somebody to move into a home, all they need is their temporary certificate of occupancy. And whether it's a developer or builder, they're aware of that. And once the people are in there, notification to that new owner should be on that builder, not the city of Dickinson.
On this first one, that is,
With the mayor's, there's no boulevard on their property, is it? It's from what, that's curbside, right? Sidewalk? Yeah.
Yes.
And we work with people. We don't make people put it actually in the boulevard.
Right.
And there actually are some utility services in the boulevard which makes it impossible. So we are flexible,
Okay.
and we will continue to be flexible.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay,
So if I
keep
can
that
just,
front yard going,
as is?
looking good.
Okay, in your comments, you did not state if a permanent certificate of occupancy would be given.
It will.
It will be, okay.
That's Leonard's call.
Yes.
And-
Based on the variance
not
and
our
approval
call,
by
that's
the
Leonard's
board,
call.
a final certificate of occupancy will be sent out to you.
As an outsider looking in, I appreciate the comments made here. It looks like somebody new to the city, new to building a home, lived on my farm my entire life. Looks like there needs to be a lot more education given to the builder and the owner, possibly. It looks like there's a,
And the landscaping company, they should know the
And the
requirements
landscape-
also.
Landscaping company.
and that was one thing I did ask our landscaping company. They said, that's
Yeah,
your
and-
problem.
And while they should know and offer that advice,
Well,
we need 3 trees, we need.
when we actually talk to, we try to educate, and I believe a lot of the contractors do know what the code is. When the homeowner says, I want 1 tree in front, that's what the contractor does. They don't go by the code at that point. Just like fencing requirements. Permits are required, but if the homeowner wants to put one up or tells a contractor what height, the contractor usually goes by what the property owner wants, not actually what the code states. Thus, we're at where.
Well, like I say, there's a lot of confusion here, because if somebody's new, I don't even know to ask those questions. So, but,
We're always gonna have this. We'll have a contractor that comes into the city, whether they do it on purpose or not. I guess that's why we'll always have a job.
okay.
Okay, well, thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Joe, come on back up now. And this is the same thing at your house, and we've already talked to you. Is there anything
Yeah,
further?
I'm sorry about the ramble, but I felt if you're gonna make a decision on the one, it's probably gonna follow suit with the second.
Well, we take them both
but-
individually. Take 'em
Okay, yeah, I understand that. I pretty much stated my case for the most part. I don't wanna put anything in the boulevard out for obvious reasons. The boulevard is sprinkled, it's part of my lawn, and plus, more often than not, you put trees in the boulevard, they're going to impact the street and the sidewalk with their roots eventually. There isn't a lot of room for me to put in another tree in the front neither. My lot is more of a pie shape, so it's narrower up front. I don't believe the city should be using part of your cement driveway area as part of the formula. I don't believe they should be rounding up either, so if I have 500 square feet of frontage area, I am required to put 1 tree. If I have 501 square feet, according to Leonard, he would round up to requiring 2. So I guess I'm putting trees in the backyard. I'm more than willing to plant more trees. I love trees. I'm a native of Minnesota. It took a while to get used to North Dakota, but I've been here for 23 years, so I guess I don't have any more to add than what I've already stated.
You stated that you were going to put the tall growing, the
Columnars, yeah, they're Dakota birch is what we're looking at. We don't have much of a backyard.
do you have an easement back there?
We do.
Is that going to be a problem for you?
I don't know. I guess I haven't checked.
Well, if you have gas lines, cable lines, power lines, obviously you'll do a locate prior to placement of the trees.
Correct.
The canopy overlapping into those areas probably won't be a problem, and most of it is board today, or cord.
Mhm.
But the placement of the trees, I mean, even if they come in and do that type of work, depending on the root system, those trees could be affected. Obviously, I would not plant trees in a utility easement.
Right. And that's what we were looking at, to make sure the columnars that we're chosen don't have very many roots that actually spread. They go straight down, and trying to, that don't fill much, they go straight up. They're basically just for, to block the view that, right now, how my deck is situated, I overlook all my neighbors in the back. So it's for their sake as well as mine, but,
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Are you ready for a decision on Joe's?
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we accept this variance as well, section 39.12.01. Approve that.
Motion. Motion to approve
I'll
by
second.
by Pat. Second by Corey. Anything further? Pat,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Thank you for coming, and looks like we've got some thoughts to do on this. And
It just seems like there's probably gonna be a lot of other ones probably coming forward in the next couple of months.
They sent out 160 letters.
Yeah, and,
Actually, we've had pretty good support as far as people planting the trees.
okay, great.
Well, I think that most people feel that a tree is great, and if 6 foot is the minimum height,
Correct.
you can do a lot with
Ornamental trees.
landscaping with a smaller tree. And I just feel that 1 to 3 trees is,
Well, even with the smaller trees, we've actually looked up to actually made sure that they were actually a tree.
Instead of a bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are. Yeah. There's a lot of variety that you can use, yeah.
And I think that's a good point that Elaine made, that maybe a meeting of some sort where you get all the landscapers, local landscapers, contractors together and explain to them that, you know, there are requirements of X number of trees, whether it be 2 or 3, but there are species that can fit in that group. And so I think going down the road, if we ever have a chance for developments like there have been in the past, I think that would be important that these people be notified of that.
That is in the plotting process now. Developers are made aware of as far as tree planting. With planting trees ahead of time, obviously you run the risk of them dying.
Tearing out because they're in the wrong spot.
Right.
And
Absolutely. And we do go to the area home builders meetings, and we do speak at those meetings as far as the requirements. The people that are developing and are building homes know the requirements.
Mr. Chair, it's similar to how everyone knows what the speed limit is, but you'll still see people speeding, you know, and you can post that down the road. I mean, there's signs everywhere. People know what the speed limit is, and sometimes people just disregard. There's only so much education you can do, and sometimes it's accountability on the part of the builder, developer, and the homeowner. I mean, being a new homeowner, I know, and I've asked Leonard about 1,000 questions, but that's the point, is that you need to ask the questions, use the resources, and take some personal accountability. You know, from when we do criminal prosecution, we say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so.
okay, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion to adjourn.
Corey?
Second
Second,
that.
we are adjourned.